All right, at 8:27, let's call to order the City of Denison Main Street Inc. Board of Directors meetings. Are there any public comments? No. So we'll move on to items for individual consideration. We'll receive a report, hold discussion, and take action on approval of the minutes of the meeting on May 22nd, 2025. They'll be on the back page of your agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. And at 8:27, let's adjourn the Main Street Inc. Board of Directors meeting. And at 8:28, let's call to order the City of Denison Main Street Advisory Board meeting. Are there any public comments? All right, we'll move on to items for individual consideration. We'll receive a report, hold discussion, take action on the approval of the minutes for the Main Street Board meeting on May 22nd.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. Let's receive a report, hold discussion, take action on a plan for the development of a new mission and vision statements. Donna, what do you have for us?
Okay. So Mitch has helped with a list of questions, but I thought we should start with our transformation strategies first of all. One is streetscape, and I think that's important to all of us. And then, of course, the visitor center is already complete under streetscape. The transformation strategy number 2 is family-friendly entertainment. And then number 3 is healthy, clean, and safe. So Sam, if you want to pull that down. Yeah. Or up, I mean. I'm sorry. And then that's got our vision and mission. Are your monitors not working?
Yeah, they're not.
Okay, that would probably be easier for you.
We just turn
We
it
can
on.
make those work.
Oh, there it is. Well, I just did the green, but, oh, now it's blue.
Oh.
There it comes.
I know I couldn't read it up there. So if you want to read, especially the vision and the mission.
So what do we need to update the mission to, since it was, we will attain Great American Main Street status?
So we can say having obtained or using our Great American Main Street status or whatever. I feel like my recommendation is to put it to ChatGPT or something. Once we get the words we want and let it format it, and then let us see what we like or want to
Fine tune it.
Yes. So that's my recommendation, but we'll discuss that more. Sam, can you bring the other?
We checked this morning.
It says it's off. I'm not sure. Maybe we're just on. Turn on the volume.
Was the whole building hearing the meeting?
Just the first part.
But it says it's off in both places, and I know to check, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'll go stand up there and see if I can hear us or something. We should be okay. I'm sorry, Donna, did you want me to show something?
To switch to the other one.
Oh, to the other thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry about all that. I sent her this like late last night, so we didn't have time to print it. So Mitch had sent some questions, and I like those. ChatGPT thought he did a very good job. And so then I just wanted to make sure that we had thought it through and, had all the best questions in there. So I put in our vision, mission, unique positioning statement, and transformation strategies. Not that we need to consider those until the end. Are we good? But I just thought for grins, maybe for guidance. And then I asked it, what else do we need to ask? What's missing? One thing that I saw that I think is important is values. So our city, of course, has values. And I recall when the whole city did their values recently, it was kind of the one school one school mentality. Like, we want Denison to have one school. We want to still be a community, And so that kind of a togetherness, a community, was one of them. I didn't put that in. That was just an
And when
example.
you say one school, is that one high school, one school?
Yeah, it would be one high school. When
One high school community where this is Denison, not Denison and Denison West, or.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
You
'Cause
see-
it kind of splits you.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
McKinney's that way, with all the
Yes.
different.
Frisco, McKinney,
Yeah.
Plano. Allen has a common thread, right? Because of
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah,
Which I think is a little weird, but still, I think it's good for the community, right?
yeah.
and we don't know, that's more of a school district mentality, but it's important to our citizens to have that. So that's just an example of values that we might have as a community. And, it's been discussed before that we could bring those all together, leaders in the community. So we'll still talk about that more in a minute. But the draft questions, can you go back to the top, Sam? So this would be something we might put out on a questionnaire digitally and ask people to complete. And that's my recommendation. And then I feel like we should come back and have a public meeting of sorts.
Pull that data together and look at
Yes,
that.
yes. And maybe reveal what they said and see if there's anything else. But the ChatGPT put them in segments. So they took Mitch's questions. They had some more that maybe had you thought about this or whatever. I think this is too many probably, but he had 10.
Yeah, I think I had 10 or 12.
Yeah,
These are-
and so that's more of a good number, but anyway. Denison's identity, and this was Mitch's question. What one word or phrase that captures what makes downtown Denison unique to you? Yeah, what's one word or phrase that captures? And I think that's a good, solid question.
It would be
What-
interesting to see what everybody else thinks, right?
Yes.
What do we get from that response?
Yes.
What does everybody say?
What makes downtown Denison stand out from other communities or downtowns in our region? I think that's a pretty solid one too. What makes us special? If you could pitch a new city motto or slogan, what would it be and why does it fit Denison? And I'm not so crazy about this question. If we had to take one away, that would probably
I
be
agree.
my
Well, that's one
favorite.
that can be very long-winded, right?
Yes.
No, it's just
Or
a
sarcastic.
Slight tweak on the one we have, instead of kicking back and move forward, it's moving mountains, kicking ass. City of Denison. It's been in my head for years. Yeah.
I love that.
Make a motion that we accept that.
All those in favor?
So, we can roll on through these, but from what I gathered, most of Mitch's questions were one word or phrase answers, not open-ended, and I feel like that's probably going to be the best, but, we can
Well, especially if
discuss it.
you're, my experience has been, I worked for a company that we did about 25 acquisitions. And every time we do one of the acquisitions, we wanted to do a new mission, vision statement. So this has kind of been tweaked a lot from that aspect. So, and like you said, if you go more than 10 or 12, it's useless. You're getting so much data, you can't really do anything with it, right? And if you limit what they respond, I think you get a better outcome, right? So.
Yeah, so we need to eliminate about half of them. On part 2, vision for the future, looking 5 years ahead, what's one exciting change you'd love to see in downtown Denison? There's one question later on that asks about 10 years, and so
You can make that one question, 5, 10, you can do it like that, if you
or just choose one.
choose one, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not sure you should go much past 5 years, because really, we are experiencing such crazy growth. In 5 years, who knows what we should be doing,
Yeah,
right?
the factors that we would have to consider.
I mean, what if we're a 150,000 person city in 5 years, right? Which, that's not
Right.
completely unreasonable, right? And at that point, I think you got to change what you're doing, right? And at that
Yeah.
point, maybe it's not one high school, it's,
Right.
So.
Very good point.
Do we have to put a specific year down?
No.
I mean, if
You could
you're-
just
if
say-
you want them to kind of think ahead.
Yeah. Look into the
5,
future.
10 or whatever.
Well, we used to always focus on 5-year plans in the business. That's the reason why it's in there like that, right?
And we've been doing 10-year visions, but we have to update those because we accomplish the things. And, like you said, I think it might be different things are relevant as time goes on. Number 5, in one sentence, how would you describe your ideal vision for the downtown Denison in the next 10 years? That's where it is. Do y'all care for that one?
It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, I think that one's probably
Similar to
redundant.
the first one, it's just worded differently.
Yeah, so strike 5. What should never change about downtown Denison, no matter how much we grow? And I like that question a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good one in there, right?
Yeah. Then part 3, community values and experience. Sam, are you taking notes? Okay. Yeah, but I was just making sure that you were taking notes, which ones they like, because,
I think 1 and 6 are definitely ones we want on the survey, right?
yeah, and strike 2 and 3 and 5. Yeah, okay. Community values and experience. Describe a recent experience downtown that made you feel proud or connected. What can we build on? I like the question. I don't like the second part of it. But
And you could leave that off, right? You could just take that last
Yeah.
piece off. And number 8, I would avoid, just
7.
because that one was more of an inclusion thing for a group, to make a group feel like they were part of the mission and vision statement. I'm not sure we need that from this aspect.
yeah, I agree with that. And number 9, what more could we do to make downtown Denison feel cleaner, safer, and more welcoming? I think this is coming in on that transformation strategy that I added in. So I don't really think this is a good question for it. I think if people feel it needs to be safer, they'll tell us.
Well, if on the mission statement it was have a clean, safe, whatever downtown, I mean, this ties into that mission.
Yes. I'm trying to think and inform, not.
I think
But
it's
what else could be said besides pick up the poop and more lighting? I mean,
How could we be cleaner and safer and?
Well, you're going to get that response, right? You're going to get lighting downtown. You're going to get dog park out of this one. Is that really valuable data to get, right?
I think we know it.
Yeah, I think we know this one. So I'm not sure that one would be, valuable here.
How can downtown Denison better reflect the identity and needs of its residents? So one thing that I was kind of reading a little bit on how do you draft a mission statement and what questions do you ask? And one thing, it's who do we serve? And so I think we need to think of that. And of course, we serve the residents in downtown and then the residents, otherwise. But, and it also had in one part, maybe it made the cut, about questions for different segments, like for city staff or for council. And so it might ask, one or two questions different to that segment. And one could be to residents or whatever. So that's an option too.
Yeah, because what we would do is most of the questionnaires that I sent her was, we would tie them, if they were in the lab, if they were an engineer, they got a different set of questions. As if they were an executive, if they were a salesperson, they got a different, if they were support, they got a different set of questions, because we wanted to get that input, right?
So you would favor that possibly?
Yeah, I would favor getting, something from the council and then something from residents and maybe even something from the business leaders. Because then at least, well, at that point, you can figure out if we have any real issues, like if there's any competing interests to that point, and how do we bridge those or resolve those. But, like you said too, you can get a better idea of what people want, what the businesses want, what the council's looking for.
You might even segregate the building owners from the business owners, if there's,
Right.
differentiated.
So we could have, what's your role, and give them, check boxes. And then if it's whatever, then it could drop down to other questions
Things
for them.
specific for that,
Yes.
the role they play.
Yes.
And if you want, you guys, I have a form system that I can use if you need that. I can send that out like that, right? So I can break it down through Microsoft Forms to send to people to get responses if you want. So.
Part 4, strategy feedback. What kind of family-friendly activities or businesses would you like to see more of downtown? I feel like that's a question for our vision. We've already seen that, and I think what we have is still relevant. I think the key is we want family-friendly entertainment.
See, that question I think would go to the council and I think the city, but I'm not sure the business owners need that one as much, right? I'm not sure, from an aspect of a business owner, that information you get back would be as valuable as the council or the others, right?
How important is enhancing the downtown streetscape? I don't think that this question should be asked. I think that ship has already sailed.
Yeah.
It's clearly important.
Yes.
It's
And
changing as we speak.
We're not gonna alter it now, right?
What additional ideas do you have for creating a healthy, clean, and engaging downtown? That kind of goes back to that other question. I think we leave that to the board to figure out maybe, and the visioning. But what additional? Okay, so 14, how should Denison balance historic preservation with new development to keep our downtown thriving? And this is one of Mitch's questions, and it was one that I'm not sure of. So ChatGPT asked it a different way, which I did not like because I thought it made it more concise as a sentence or a question, but it left you going like, I don't think I know what that means. And I don't know. Historic preservation is what makes us special. So I don't know that we need to ask that like it's obvious. But, I'll appreciate your thoughts on that.
And the reason I brought that one up was because as we grow, you're going to notice different things downtown, like we're already seeing with the Penis building here, right? People are freaking out because it might be torn down. Are we going to save it? It'd be interesting to see what people's thoughts are across the board on that, right? I think, to know, should the city step in? I mean, if if the city really wants to, should the city step in and save the building, right? Or should somebody else, you know what I mean? Or should you say, hey, that's enough money, we can't spend that, we should let the developers develop it or tear it down or whatever the case is, right? And I think that's I think that's important to know, but I don't know, to Donna's point, I don't know if we're at that point yet, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, as far as that, like, and for instance of that, the Historic Preservation Board has to approve anything that happens, whether it's demo or updating anything. So in that case, the city does have a responsibility for that. But
and the ordinance is already there in place, so I don't see that changing.
But I think this is an important question, because every time, someone comes in and buys a building, leases a space in downtown, there is that balance, and at what point does it need to switch from being a balance to more of a harmony, that some things are going to have to be updated. Difficult things happen when you're working on a historic building that may tip the scale in a direction that nobody saw coming and nobody wants, but that's what you're left with. So your decisions have to be, made based on the facts that you're handed now. So there's always going to have to be that push and pull, and I think it's a good question. I think it brings up an important discussion that needs to continue to happen.
So, okay, but is it going to help us develop a mission or vision statement, or is it going to help us develop our priorities? And should we be looking deeper into redoing our priorities, the whole mission and vision statement? So I'll just leave that there, along with, is there some way we could reword it, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is historic preservation, which we did ask that in our last visioning, and we have the metrics from that. So anyway, that's...
Well, I would think too, if you want to do that, I would think you'd probably want to do that across the board. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to ask questions that are, hey, what's your answer? Then use the scale, like you said, or leave it open-ended, across the board. But I'd choose a path, whatever format you want to do, I'd choose that. Right? And not to say you couldn't have some open forum and questionnaires. Right?
Okay.
But, I'd probably do it like that.
And yeah, I can see having different kinds of questions to answer. We have previously in our, in our visioning survey, but certainly appreciate that you've been through this very many more times than I want to get our best results.
And two, if you go down to the next section, like to section 18, I think question 18 kind of covers a lot of 14, so you may dump 14 for 18, because some of the questions are answered there. Because scroll down a little bit, Sam, you can see on question 18, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it for local business growth, art history, Texas heritage? You've got a little bit of that there, so I don't know if maybe you expand that a little bit more. Add another bullet point about historic preservation.
I think,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
like, to me, how important is the balance of historic preservation and development to our downtown? I don't think people are going to comprehend that and understand it unless they've got a building and need that, and maybe that's a good question for them. But I was just thinking, make it a little bit more understandable or relevant. Ask on a scale. So this is all just discussion. I'm not,
I guess the question on 14 is, what do you hope to gain from that? Do you want to know how much they want historic preservation, or are you looking for actual ideas on how to balance that and growth?
I'm not looking for ideas. I think we have a process in place that I'm very satisfied with, and it's flexible. Like if you have a building fall down, okay, now what? So
And, just looking out the window, we can see that we do work hard to balance that with a brand new, beautiful, modern, forward positioning streetscape that runs the length of our historic downtown. So that's already
Happening.
front and center.
Yeah, I would just hate to see us change that because I think that's a major part of our people and our buildings, I think, are our strongest points.
Here's a thought. When new development comes in, and if it's a place where they can actually build a new building, is there any kind of design style that we want them to tie in with? Because from here, I can see a mid-century modern building there, kind of a brutalist style building there, and then the building we're in here it was an old building, but it's got this facade that would be more mid-century. So is that something that you're wanting to get information on to see if anyone?
We already have a process and a policy and ordinance that was recently redone. And so you can disagree with me, but I feel like that's pretty solid. It's based on national standards. So we're not going to go to McKinney or Georgetown or, back east or anywhere and find any different standards. They're the same. These buildings that you're referring to were modified, some after a fire, some not, but they were modified before we had the historic preservation ordinance. So now we have a plan in place for new construction that it's got to fit in with its environment. So I feel like that's pretty solid as well. They just have to fit in with the environment.
That's something we've gone through recently with the visitor center building and then the other buildings that are being developed. That had to come through twice with revisions.
But I don't think too, I think you guys are thinking of this as like a historic, this isn't really a question about that. No. This is a question so do we want to allow Airbnbs downtown? Do you want to allow, more conglomerations? Like, you remember we used to have the train, that little restaurant vendor place? Do we want more of that downtown? I think that's more of a question along that line, not, hey, let's get rid of the historic downtown. I don't think that's the question. I think what we're trying to get to is, what do you see as downtown? We know historic preservation is important, but also what else is important to you? Do you like to see businesses, shared space? Do you like, more malls? Would you like to see, along those lines? I think local business growth means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I don't think this is just the idea of historic preservation. And I don't think this is a question to try to get you to get rid of historic preservation. It's just, from your perspective, what's the most important thing? Is it local business? Because really, when you try to talk to business owners down here, if business owners all said, like 90% said business growth over historic preservation, if you come at them with historic preservation first, they're going to tune you out. They're not even going to listen to you. Where if you focus it on local business growth tied to the historic preservation, they seem to be much more, you know what I'm saying? I think that's the value you get out of this, not the idea that we're going to change anything but it helps us figure out how to talk to people too. Right?
Yes, fine-tuning our communication
Yeah.
style so that they
Yeah.
can receive the information
Exactly.
they need to receive.
And there's also another part of the historic preservation. Some people think museums like the Railroad Museum, which is, we need to focus on that too, because I think that's important to our history and to us, and it could be, we need to focus on that.
Yeah, and like my business, we're really trying to focus more on Texas heritage and Texas products, right? So that's a really big point for us, because we're historical, we're downtown, we've been a part of this community, so it helps us build our business brand, right? So,
Yeah.
And I think that's what other businesses are looking for around here too.
So on question 18, you could actually go in and separate art out. History and Texas heritage obviously go together. Art is more of a culture, art and culture.
Yeah.
So if you want to get people's feedback on what's important, that would be probably something you'd want to separate art out from those other two.
What do you think about history and Texas heritage, and then art, culture, and music?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think we should change it up to that, yeah.
Okay.
And then we can get rid of that number 14, tie 18 together, like you said, with those things, and then we're getting the data, but it's not really like, hey, I mean,
Right.
you know, we're not changing anything from historical preservation. It's just what are important to us.
And I guess I'm just thinking, okay, well, how would they answer this, like, without an in-depth knowledge?
Just say why
Yeah.
afterwards. Ask
Yeah.
them for a rating and then say why.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they're passionate about one particular item,
They'll
they'll
say.
tell you why.
Yeah.
You can even have one of those that says new development as well, so that way you're not missing the
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
Because if it's like 0 new development, 100,
Yeah.
you know, 5
Yeah.
on.
Because we have to be careful to keep a balance, you know, a balance of ages and backgrounds and all that is important to our downtown. Okay, 15, winning the Great American Main Street reflects years of hard work. What values or actions should we double down on now? I don't, that was a ChatGPT question that I'm not sold on. I don't
That
know.
would be one I would think would go more to the council, I think.
Yeah,
Or even just the header of the
that is good.
the survey.
Yeah.
Winning the group has reflected years of hard work. We still are hard at work. How do we go? Where do we move on from here? Type thing, and then go into the survey.
What's one challenge facing our downtown community that a renewed mission could help address?
I like this one, but I don't know. I mean,
I know.
It's good because you could at least, if you do it, like we said, if you did city employees, if you did council, and you did, you know, business owners, or even local people, you could at least get an idea of what their thoughts are. And I bet you there will be a difference, whether it's a local person, whether it's a local business, council, or, you know, the others. So I think that's where the value comes in that one. But
I
don't
like
know.
that. I like asking the question not for this purpose, but just to
just
know.
to see what's there. right?
Yeah.
Question can also be kind of addressed in what our strengths and what our weaknesses are earlier. I know we had a question on what.
Well, you can make it part of 18. You can just say as part of that list of the art history, and then on the last one be like, you know, what challenge faces our downtown community that can, you know, that you see facing us, right? You could add that as an open-ended question on that list of 19, right? You can make it part of that one. It makes sense in that one.
Yeah.
I think.
So on 17, how well does the phrase eclectic blend of commerce and livable environment describe the heart of Denison? What might be missing? And that's from our vision statement now. Part 6 is leadership and action. What role should city employees and leadership play in bringing a shared vision for Denison to life? I think that's an
think that's a
individual
council
question. Yeah. And then what would you like? Oh, would you like to be involved in shaping that vision? And I thought that was a good question. Again, not to form it, but come on, help.
Yeah, come join us, right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
They might check out of the survey by that time. Okay.
Always ask for help, right?
And that's all right, Sam. So I've had a timeline that I've developed, and yeah, if you've got that, that would help. So I presented that to the assistant city manager, and she's going to visit with the city manager to see, you know, to tell him our plan. But I'll start with the bottom. I think we need city council approval by September 15th. That's the last meeting in September, I think. And then August 28th would be our board approval. So we would, you know, vote on what we're going to ask them to approve. And then that would mean we would have all of August to work on it. I go on vacation the very last week in July. I think it goes into August, so I thought we should probably have it done before then, although we could have a public meeting in August if y'all wanted to. But I had recommended maybe July 11th as a deadline for our online survey, because that gives us 2.5, 3 weeks, at least 2. And then I put some dates down, July 14, 15, 17, or 24 for a public meeting. And I think that probably should be in the evening.
And how many public meetings do you think there needs to be?
I just feel like one is probably all, unless, we need to bring a smaller group back. But if we do this format, but I'm open to any suggestions. So what I would propose is that we would do a survey and then a public meeting. So if you can't come to the public meeting, you could at least participate in the survey. And then we could, kind of get some ideas and see if we're missing anything with the public meeting. And
Would you want to have the survey results kind of tallied when you have or before you have your public meeting?
that was my thought.
Yeah. Then I wouldn't, since it's the 11th, I wouldn't do it like on the 14th or through the 17th. I would go ahead and go out to the 24th. That gives you time to go over it, distill it, especially since there's going to be some written content that you'll have to kind of go through and consolidate.
Yeah, I was going to automate that. Let's see what day of the week that's 24th is on.
24th is a Thursday.
Okay, so I had it on the, okay.
We could do it then too. We could. Could they do it during our board meeting? Come in? Yeah, public comment section? I don't know.
But does that limit people who
Work.
aren't available at 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I think we probably should, we could have it.
We can
Then-
hardly get the board to show up at 8 a.m.
That's funny.
Hey, we're all here.
I think 6 could work. I mean, realistically, I think most of our responses are going to be from business owners and things that are, more
Yeah.
involved downtown. So I think 6 could be a good time. Just so that
Yeah.
when people are closing, they can come over.
Yeah.
So, do you think a Thursday evening is gonna work? Because, lots going on in
Is
the,
there a reason you chose those dates?
because I'm available.
Because you're available those days. Then, yeah, I would just,
No,
you're
just do it.
available.
6
I do it
o'clock
on that day.
Thursday.
6 o'clock on Thursdays.
Yeah, 6 o'clock on Thursday. I don't know if there's any other better time.
Or
Yeah.
would you rather have it the week before, so that way whatever was at the public meeting could be
That's what I was
talked?
gonna say, is if we do it on the 24th that evening, we won't have a board meeting until we wanna approve it in August. We'll have to come up with
Oh, yeah.
something and present it to the board without really.
So maybe the 17th,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thursday the 17th.
and then the 24th we
And then we could
reflect.
talk about it on the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, you could always move it up to the 17th. But
Yeah.
Okay.
the only real risk there is if something happens and you have some issues, right? You could be falling behind, but I don't think that's a big issue. So.
So the 17th is what we like?
17 to 6 p.m.
17th at 6 p.m.
Yeah, here. Thank y'all for bearing with me through that.
Are you able to
Appreciate
see
it.
Is the chambers open at that time?
So do we need to make a motion for this timeline and approve it?
Let's see what's on our agenda.
July 17th at 6 p.m., is that what we had said?
Yeah.
It's available. If there's something at 8 a.m., but that's in here.
Okay. Yeah, I think it allows us, it says, take action on a plan, so you could,
I make a motion to accept the deadlines that we put for July 11th for the deadline, the 17th for the meeting, and then our approval for the 24th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The timeline has passed.
Good work. That was a
yeah,
lot.
naturally.
Yeah.
I know you're going to do stuff, and I'm like, why is that?
She's multitasking.
I was like, am I doing something here?
Very organized.
She is, that's what I was thinking too. And she's pretty quick at getting.
Yeah.
All right, let's receive a report, hold discussion, and consider plans for Good Morning Downtowners on August 19th, 2025.
I really just wanted to update you guys and see if you had any other ideas on what we did. Last year was our first year to have it, and it was kind of set up in this room, and it had tables throughout the room, kind of like vendor booths, as you would think of. And the business owners could just come in and visit with anybody that, you know, that they had an interest in talking to, and then probably there's plenty of time to visit with the others. So last year we had the police department, dog, various, do you remember what else we had? We had the streetscape. Yeah, probably. Yeah, our partners. So that's the type of format. This year, I've already asked the fire marshal to be here. You remember that we've talked about the vacant property registration, and he's already got a vacant property registration. It would just be enhancing that and making it more timely. And so by August 15th, we'll probably have lots of questions about that, what he's got. And so I've asked him to come, and, there's always questions of the fire marshal. I thought that would be a good one. So Chris Lamka, the designer of the streetscape, is going to be here then. He's scheduled to visit, so he can be here. And can't remember that. Those are the two that are new. But can you think of anybody else that we should invite?
I think Amanda with Parks and Rec about the dog park. That's a huge.
Yeah. That'd be
That's
good.
a huge thing.
Jordan is our new tourism manager, and so that would be good.
We should probably get Derek from DDI to be there so you can talk about the downtown stuff for people, from DDI's perspective, right?
Would it be wise for planning and zoning or code enforcement or anything there, so they have any questions? Or historic preservation? Okay.
Okay. Some partners we could get.
Of course, DDA
Chamber.
for any grant questions and
Yeah,
back entry.
they were here last year. Any other thoughts? Y'all can always email me and let me know. But you might put that on your calendar. It's August 19th at 8 a.m. to 10. So it's really 8 to 9:30. And it would be good to have your support for sure
Where will it be?
here.
Last time we did kind of like a round table, so we'll get all the chairs out and have just kind of a round. That way people can come in and kind of talk to who they want
It's kind of
to.
like a trade show. Where you go up to the vendors that you're interested in and ask for samples.
Like the police department was here, and Denison Animal Welfare Group was here to talk about cats, and
Yeah,
so I think that's probably still an issue.
that is still an issue.
All right, we through with Good Morning Downtowners? All right, let's receive report, hold discussion, and consider plans for the 2026 calendar of events.
That's just starting the process for our calendar of events, and we always try to have it done by August. And so, do you like our current calendar of events? Do you think we need to modify it in any way? We have talked about some music events to activate Heritage Park. Grant, are you ready to talk about that? We've got kind of a music-friendly update, just discussion on activating the park, because for the last half of 2026, it should be ready, and it makes sense to use it, so.
Yeah, we talked in our music friendly committee about, like Donna said, just activating the park for music. So right now, as far as like our music friendly initiatives go, the two main ones are our busking event in April, and then the Make Music Day that we take part in. So now that we have the stage, we want to activate it more. So we talked about involving more music just with our existing events. So whether that's, talking with DDI at like the bar crawls and pub crawls. And then also we talked about like our wine walk, just having busking events. It doesn't necessarily have to be, something that we put tons of money into, but as far as like music festivals go, we talked about sometime in the end of September doing one. I need to look at dates. I need to look what's going on around our community, so we're not conflicting. But really just getting artists in existing venues, we talked about, the food park has a great stage that we really don't utilize, so trying to activate that as well, and getting all the businesses with venues connected with our events. Yeah, so I think we talked about, I know as far as a tourism perspective, at least the last manager, the value of the Arts and Jazz Fest, just the cost didn't make sense to use those funds towards that. I still think the Arts and Jazz Fest was a great concept. So I think that format could be really good. So yeah, sorry, I didn't really explain the festival. Like in September, November, we were talking about kind of going off of that and building it up to be a bigger festival. But again, it's not so. I know with the Arts and Jazz, we were hiring people that were thousands of dollars, so we don't need to go to that scale, at least to start. But building up something like that again, I think could be a good concept.
And that event was well attended, right?
I think so.
Is that when we had all the streamers that are art installation in Heritage?
Yeah,
Park
so
and-
the Arts Council do that for DIA, and it just happened. I think it was the weekend after DIA, or maybe the weekend before. I know it was right around DIA. I think for the tourism perspective, that was to bring in people, and it really was a good event for people who were local, but didn't really necessarily get that traction that they were looking for, in understanding. But anyway, so that doesn't mean it's not a bad concept. So we still like that for downtown.
And these are not all our events. These are, as a matter of fact, I think DDI's pub crawls already have music, and so we would just celebrate that and consider that, a music event. And then our busking, we already have that. We wanted to add busking to the wine walk, and so it's not a wholesale change. It would add a music festival in September for us. Is
Which
what
I think
was
that's a
discussed.
good idea. I think September's a good time to do one, right? Because you're past the rainy point, right?
Yeah.
And the weather's potentially better.
Hopefully.
It could also be 110, but it might be nice, right?
October is when it really gets into festival season for everywhere, so I think at that point it's probably too late.
But we get so much rain in October. It's so, will it be or will it not? And we're so close to the lake, I think we get more rain than even
Yeah.
most, right? So.
Did y'all have any more comments on the schedule? Mitch will need to get with DDI.
Okay. Yeah, we'll pull all those together for you guys.
And if it's iffy, then it doesn't go on our printed calendar.
Not that we won't promote it.
Right, yeah.
All right. Let's move on to special project reports. First is music friendly.
The only other thing I would add, we had our music friendly, or our Make Music Day this last weekend. We didn't have a huge turnout, but I think Dawn and I kind of talked to make sure it was a viable thing we're doing. I think it is with, if we're going to be music friendly, I think it's important to celebrate that and take part in it. We didn't get a great turnout in person, but we got great traction online. So even if it's just a PR effort, I think it's still worth it. And this is only our second year of doing it. It's always in summer solstice, so we can't choose what day it's going to be on as far as what day of the week. But sorry, my mind's blanking. But last year it worked great with it being on Music on Main, so we got great participation the first year because of that. This year we didn't get as much, but I think it's something we can build on, and it's definitely a good initiative for us to take part in. And it's free. I mean, it's free for us to join, so it's not a a cost or anything like that.
All right, on to the TERS number 3, designing downtown Denison.
So it's getting a little bit more complicated to explain because there's a lot of activity going on. On August 4th, they're supposed to move out of the 300 block. And that's also going to allow a turn to the north by 34 Chop House and Nets Explosion. To the south is still going to be blocked off. On September 1st, roughly, the area by Copacetic Cowboy is going to be opened up, but not the park. So that section there next to the park is going to be closed. Yes, till it's done. And then we're moving into the 400 block on July 7th. And that date was moved up. And so for about a month, they're going to be in both blocks. So that's going to cause parking to spread this way and that way and north and south. And so it'll be an adjustment, as it always is when you go into a new area.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot more Facebook comments during that time.
Yeah.
Well, today Emily's is putting signs out, and
Yeah.
they're going to tow, is what they said.
And they're
Yeah.
Going to tow if you park there and you're not at Emily's.
I saw the signs.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else had sent them to me.
So next to Snow White
Yep.
over there.
He said this whole parking lot belongs to Emily.
Yeah. And 34 and that, and they want to leave it for their customers, and so if somebody comes into the city offices or whatever, they're just possibly parking.
He said city parking is down in the next block on the other side, next to DDA. Yeah.
So we've tried to leave that for customers because we've got a lot of feedback from the businesses that it needs to be left open for customers. So we've at least asked them to move to the other side. We park elsewhere. Like I'm parking over by the Herald Democrat. And it's only going to get worse for the next few weeks, but we will get through it.
Yeah, well, I got out of my car and he walked up to me. Yeah, they're serious.
So just today, you parked
Yeah.
there to go to the meeting, and he was like, mm-mm.
You can't park here. Are you going to Emily's? I said, nope, I'm going to city. I have a meeting.
Yeah.
He goes, you can't park here.
Yeah.
We will tell you. We're putting signs out right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's where we are. It's at the point in construction and the congestion of having a thriving downtown.
But the thing is, are they
Yeah.
really going to
Well,
have someone out there making sure? That's the thing. I mean, I'm not going to park there. I'm just saying, after the signs get up,
How do you know?
how are they going to know? You know?
And if you go to,
I mean,
to
they might
Emily's
have
and
someone
eat,
out there.
and then as you're leaving, you stop here and stop here before you go and you get in your car. I mean, is that?
But you're right, there's a lot of construction. I did a map this week that shows all the construction that's going on, and it's a lot.
There's actually
a lot.
parking lot technologies for that. They can actually, it's pretty cheap now too. There are actually technologies you can look for that, so.
For whether a car parked in this
Well,
specific.
and it can tie with your cameras and say, did you go which way you went? And then that car's tagged as safe or tagged as not, and it's very easy. It's very
wow.
cheap now too, actually. so.
Okay,
So if you're gonna go to Emily's, you have to go straight in, and you can't walk around.
Yeah, the camera would notice that, and it would tag your car as a potential tow, right? So,
Don't go
But
in the back
some of the
door, or
customers
front
there,
door, go in the back.
you know, like you guys, people that park for you would be probably towed because they'll be there a long time. People who park for Derek, I don't think they'd be there that long to get towed.
No.
By the time they call them, I don't think the tow truck would get there, but you know, but yeah, it just depends. Or if they're going to the salon, they could probably get towed. You know.
Yeah,
And I
but
know the Chop House put their fence up right there too, right? They put that pipeline right there.
but there have been a lot of other people using that lot, so.
Well, and that's the one of the busier blocks too. The 300 and the 400 is two of the busier blocks, so it's going to be even more crazy when it closes for that month. So
well, and the bottom line is, communication has gone out very friendly, very thorough, very, here's the reasons why, and here is the better alternative for you. All of that's been happening.
Yeah.
And that's gone out repeatedly. So if you continue to make the wrong choice, then now you will have to deal with the consequence of continuing to make that wrong choice.
I mean, truthfully, we do have a lot of parking. We do. You just have to walk.
It's a mindset.
It is. But we can walk from the back of Walmart to the front of Walmart, and it's the same distance as me walking from here to that parking lot over there. You know?
yeah, we're much better down there in the 100 block. We don't have any of those issues. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
All right, well, good for them. Good for them. And when we were out on our little jaunt the other morning, we saw, gosh, I forget her name, but the waitress at Emily's parking way out, excuse me, and walking all the way in for her job. So the employees at Emily's
No, they have to park off.
are not hogging up, you know, they're being a responsible business owner by having their employees park further out. So.
I mean,
yeah, they're doing
truthfully,
it
even
right.
if you park at the library parking lot, it is not that far. It's not. Yeah.
True.
All right, moving on to the Ike hike.
So we do have our signs in, and they will go in the 400 block when streetscape is constructed there, and then down on the 700 block, and then back behind Albertsons. So that's good news.
Yeah.
All right. On to Doc Holliday.
We've taken a break. Did we have a report in the, I think, yeah, we had a RAP meeting that's in there. Now, was there anything else you think of?
Like, just in regards to our recent meeting yesterday, or? Yeah, I mean, I think this is accurate. It went really well from our, I mean, this was a new layout we had to do that we had never done before. So I think we got really good feedback. I know our partners did really well, which I don't want to say was surprising, but I'm glad that they had such a good time. Yeah, so we learned and we'll adapt for next year as we continue to get through construction.
Do you feel like it was bigger this year, or do you feel like it was pretty much the same size as last year?
The Placer AI has been weird lately, where it's been giving us, like, for instance, when I checked right after the first Music on Main, it said we had like 500 people, which was completely wrong. So I checked early on, and it was about the same number as the previous year, which is good. I think that was like 12,000 or 13,000. I haven't gone back and checked since then because I think it spews out a number like right after 3 days, but it's not like I think it takes like a week or two to actually get to closer to the real number. Anyways, I think it was well attended. Yeah.
No, I
It looked,
agree.
just so you know, it looked like, because I looked at because I have a Wi-Fi system that monitors visitors, passerbys, et cetera. Our numbers were down about 6 to 7% this year compared to last year and the year before. They were both, the last year and the year before were pretty close evenly. This year was a little bit off, but not a ton. It was maybe 6 to 7%.
Yeah, we're saying we had equivalent to the last
Yeah.
year.
But it was the
felt like
threat
it
of
was.
rain, I think, was the bigger problem
I do
this
too.
year, right? I
Yeah,
mean, the
yeah.
threat was definitely there. We didn't have it, but it was
Right.
definitely a big threat. So, and I think that hurt us to a degree.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, 6 to 7% is what I noticed from a sheer numbers perspective.
We've talked about it. I think one of the main things that we can also improve on. I mean, it was a learning experience for the first time with construction in the middle. I think we talked about trying to get doing better with visibility to get through the fences. I did, whenever I was walking the festival, I was happy with how much I saw people walking through it. But maybe we needed better about signage through there for the festival. But
I mean, truly, I walked it probably 7 times, and I did not feel anyone was complaining about having to walk
Yeah.
and where they were going, and just trying to figure out how to get to the other side was kind of more of, people.
Yeah, everybody was really happy that
Yeah.
day, I noticed. I mean, I think people this year were pretty pleased with it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Well, we had to modify the event, but we did. We met yesterday. He reminded me with Public Works, and so the Public Works director is the emergency management director, and I think especially on Dock Holiday and Fall Festival and things like that, and you've noticed at some other events that there's a emergency management presence. And like at Dock Holiday, we had vehicles that were stationed there and then barricades. And so I think you'll see one or the other. If people have to get in and out, there's going to be vehicles. But we have in our policies that the vendors must stay from start to finish. And so that's going to dictate that they stay from start to finish, because they'll have barricades that are filled with water, unmovable. And that's to keep a car from ramming through them. And so, that's a good feeling that we have a much safer event. And so that's just going to be a presence that you'll notice.
So are you saying they're going to change the barriers next year so they won't use the cars? Are they going to use the cars and those water barriers?
We're going to try to be better in designing the festival. We didn't know until maybe a couple of weeks out that they were going to be there.
So Fall Fest is the big one they're really wanting to be prepared for. Dock Holiday was their test run. So, and they'll be there going forward at Dock Holiday, but like Donna said, it was really last minute that we found out about it. So there was we didn't know what it was going to look like. I took pictures of all the barricades and everything they had so we can plan going forward. A big reason they had the trucks was because we had all the cross streets open for the wagons. So if we didn't have obviously we want to have the wagons. So that's a big part of Dock Holiday. So we'll talk and see how we can incorporate those and not have as many trucks. The big issue is that it was coming through the cross streets, so they had to have the trucks there. I think the barricades will be less noticeable when we don't have the trucks sitting there, because there was probably 8 trucks or so, or maybe more. So we'd like to remove that, just at least for photos. So
I do like the water barricade.
yeah, no, and all of our discussions with emergency management, it's not that we are against public safety. We're all for it. It's just how do we navigate being safe and visually appealing for the festival. So
I
Yeah, because
do
they
like
told us
that.
they told us during that Memorial Day that the street posts aren't strong enough, so they had to put the trucks there. So for that same reason.
I like the idea of the truck staying near the food vendors there, because like I had to deliver stuff to the Boys and Girls Club, so it was like, hey, and then they back out of the way, and I'd go, hey, unload this real quick, and then circle back out. So that was handy for that.
At least for me personally, like that one was on the side street, kind of by the alleys. You're talking about that truck. So like at least for a visually standpoint, that one's not really the issue. It was all the trucks in the middle that were, I think we were more concerned about.
And it wasn't necessarily a problem. We just like a cleaner look.
Yeah. And one of the things there was like the decor to bring it more to Doc Holliday on the areas discussed that could be approved. So it's kind of like one of those things like, hey, these weren't around in 1872.
No,
What's
but
this horseless carriage you're doing here?
the times have changed too, so barriers are very important.
Yes, yes.
And speaking of horseless carriage, we did discuss the fact that there was a car show, which happened to coincide. It wasn't actually part of Doc Holiday, but they normally have it on a side street, and they were going to expand, so we let them come up on Main Street. The problem is they didn't stay there all day, and so the last part of the day, it was just a big empty block. It was blocked off with nothing going on.
And,
which,
and
yeah.
isn't that kind of their MO? They show up, stay for the length of time they want to, and then they go on. And that repeatedly causes a problem when vendors are required to stay, or else they're penalized. So should that not also fall to them?
Going forward, they're not going to be able to leave because there'll be water-filled barricades. So if there is a positive, other than safety, that might be one of them. It'll be, I mean,
Yeah, they won't be able
they
to,
can
but-
physically leave, but the cars won't be able to exit. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to
Okay.
stand by the car.
So that's a problem that solved itself.
But what happens if you block off a block with water barriers and there's an emergency in that block? Do they just,
The point is that somehow there will be emergency access, we just have to figure out where the truck is going to be. Because I think there's supposed to be a way to access somebody, anywhere.
So part of it is with emergency management on there, they have like their four-wheeler things that can get through those. So in the instance, say someone broke a leg or something, they'd be able to transport them out of that block. I know they also have means of like using forklifts and things to move a barricade if it was something like that. But as far as
But
that
they can
goes,
take that water out pretty fast, because I was
I mean,
there when
there
it was
has to be
happening.
emergency contingency.
yeah, they
Always
can
go.
they can
There's
drain
a lot.
them.
fire,
And,
you gotta,
Yeah, you gotta be
you
able
gotta
to
get
clear it.
trucks in
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Yeah,
it does,
to me, the trucks blocking the road didn't really distract. I mean, it's just something we expect to see these days, and so, I mean, yeah, it's not authentic to the era, but
And I know it sounds, and it really is impressive at how prepared they are for it. They have their mobile unit, and then it has fire, police, emergency management, public works. So all the parties are involved. They have, well, I won't go into in the weeds, but they know where all our locations are, where everyone is. So in case someone did call, we would know exactly where it's at. With our radios, it's now a one-way communication to police, so we don't even need to call 911 in an emergency. It's a straight just radio to them. So there is a lot of, they got drones in the sky to watch for things, so it's pretty impressive, all the stuff they have.
and we talked about like if there's a lost kid and Mel's working the information booth and somebody comes up, oh, we got a lost kid, then we've got direct communication to them to report that. And
I think that's all part of making downtown feel safer.
Exactly.
I mean, all of that stuff. I mean, the fact that, I mean, we're up here and, far away from the maddening crowds, but you still like to know that they're doing things to keep people safe, because there's events all the time that people go through and drive into crowds and,
And being proactive
people.
instead of reactive.
yes, yeah.
And we talked, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily need to be someone with malicious intent. It could be just someone not paying attention.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Right.
true.
All right, on to the Eisenhower birthday.
I'll just remind everyone that the brick order deadline is July 4. And so we've got plans with the birthplace for the Eisenhower birthday celebration. That's going well.
How are the numbers on that so far? The orders, how are the orders going on that? Is that normal for this, at this point?
Yeah, I think we have 10 completed forms, but we've probably had another 10 that have come through the office, been picked up a form. So I think the traction's been good so far.
I have 10 forms, but some of them have, or did you break them up?
Can they get that form online?
Online or in person. And we have them at our Music on Main and stuff too. On our pre-roll, it reads it out, and we have it at our tent.
That's cool.
All right, on to committee reports. DDI.
DDI this month, we don't have a lot this month. We didn't have a meeting this month. We did our Dads and Dills drawing this weekend, or Father's Day weekend. Gave away the gun at the pawn shop. I think it was a pop around the corner customer that won the entries. The next thing for us, I think, is tax-free weekend coming up, but we're not meeting again until August anyway. We took a break for July. No big things this year because of the park. We're not going to do remember last year we did the, what is it?
Cornhole.
We did the cornhole tournament. So, and we made a lot of money with that, but since the park's closed, we're not going to do it this year. So, and it's a little hot, this time of year. So we'll see. But other than that, that's all we have. Anybody have any questions for DDI or anything?
Was it a good turnout for Dads and Dills? Did we have lots of raffles?
Oh, we did. We had a pretty good turnout. My store did not do very well with it. We didn't have a lot of customers that really wanted to participate. So. Which was interesting to me. I thought that would have been higher.
You never know.
You never know.
So Denison Area Chamber of Commerce, Bowling Bash is Monday the 30th. I think there's one team to fill before they have to start going upstairs. We just did our coffee and chat where we had Hagen Boo and Shelley Luther there to discuss what they did in August during this session. Both of them are freshmen, so I think it was pretty eye-opening for them there, and kind of talked on the key points. And then we're about to start bearing down and getting ready for Fall Fest. Probably have a quarterly luncheon coming up too sometime. I will say, so that's about it for it. And then we don't have anything for CBB or tourism. Nobody in here.
So Jordan's at Tourism College.
Tourism College.
Yay.
Alright. So I dropped in. I told Donna's already heard this because she heard it at the DDF, but I'm a chamber / Main Street / tourism dork, and whenever I'm gone on vacation, I will visit those places. And I walked into the Starkville, Mississippi. They're off of Mississippi State. We're there for a wedding this weekend, and I walked in and was trying to see if there was any cool brochures to steal or steal some ideas. And,
Right, yes.
when I said I was from Denison, Texas, they were like, "You just won the Great American Main Street." And then they bent my ear for about an hour. My wife was tugging on me like, "You're supposed to go to the cigar bar now." So,
Fine. Did they want to take pictures with you and have you sign?
but they were just like, "How do y'all do it?" And I was like, "I tell you how. It's because I serve on all the boards."
Right? Yeah, find yourself a zap.
No, it was hard work and long years. I mean, it is basically what I said, just keep at it. But they had a downtown reminiscent of ours, but they were the county seat, and but it was a historic. 1838 is when they were incorporated.
Oh, wow.
So they'll be coming up with their bicentennial pretty soon. But a town about our size, 25,000 without the college, about 50,000 with. So it's almost like a Sherman Denison together. So.
You did report that back to the mayor, correct? That you were asked, or that they realized that we were a Great American Main Street Award winner. Okay, good.
All right, on to promotions.
The rest of the committee should be in the packet.
Okay. So it looks like coming up, we've got Music on Main, Make Music Day, 4th of July, Good Morning Downtowners, and the Munson Wine Walk. And then, of course, we discussed new businesses and economic vitality, and anything for lease, and updated some listings. Design Committee, walk downtown district, take stock of areas needing attention or improvement. And then organization, discuss proposal to revive STAR volunteer program framed on a model presented at Main Street Now conference. Got anything for a director's report?
Not everyone was here. It wasn't official whenever Amanda was here. I don't know if you wanted.
So Amanda Parsons, our Parks and Rec director, has reported that the Parks Commission agreed to the dog park and Forest Park, and so I feel like that'll probably happen this winter and be open soon. So the funding is in place for that through some cost savings of the Eisenhower Monument. And so I said, well, we want to use the rest of this for the dog park, and so they need to take it to council as just an information item, I think, to update them. That's all.
All right. So at 9:42, let's adjourn the Main Street Board of Directors meeting.